Hello, my name is Father Frank Schneider, the pastor of St. Elizabeth of Hungary in Melville, New York. And on Monday evening, September 21st, the day before the Pope arrives in the United States, our parish gathered for an evening of reflection, prayer, and discussion in order to prepare us for important days for the Church in our country. The topic has been, what will the Pope say and do? It's the first of two evenings together. We'll be gathering next Monday night, the 28th of September, to discuss how we felt the Pope's visit went and things that struck us, and to sort of compare notes together. The theme of this presentation is how to listen to the Pope, not only his words, but to watch what he does, to really enter into an experience of the papal visit, to listen with our hearts as well as with our ears, to look with our eyes, to allow ourselves a full experience of what's going on when this wonderful man comes to our country, a man who's so full of life, so full of joy, a man truly of the gospel, a servant of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So many things in the newspapers and the media talks about predictions of what he's going to say, or even worse, making his statements and what he's going to be doing or has done political. The Pope is a man of the gospel. He is not a politician. Labels like liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat do not fit with the Holy Father. The gospel defies these categories. So to experience him in a worldly or a secular way, that's something that Catholic Christians can supersede by our faith, by listening and truly experiencing the Holy Father's visit. So we'll be looking at some themes that we'll probably be encountering together as the Holy Father visits our country. These are just a few themes that occurred to me, especially as I prepared for this over the summer. There's enormous amount of material and possibilities, but just look at some themes to help us listen and to experience the visit. First, the Holy Father is a man of words and actions. He puts into practice what he preaches. This has been a highlight, a hallmark of his ministry from the beginning. His first apostolic trip was to Lampedusa to visit the migrants, the refugees, the immigrants who were stranded there, that terrible catastrophe that continues to grow in Europe and around the world. So certainly he'll be talking about this crisis and how we're all to work together to be with these folks who need our special care. His first Holy Thursday was as a prison where he washed the feet of women and men, of Christians and non-Christians. And we all remember in November of 2014, during his papal audience, he just happened to reach down and bless this little child from England who was terminally ill. A man of words and gestures. So we'll be watching for words and his actions throughout the days to come. And let's see which moves our hearts more deeply, his words or what he does. He's a man that continues to preach about surprises. Let God surprise you. He's a man of hope. The gospel always brings us new life, new adventures. And we know that throughout his visit, he'll be surprising us, probably by changing an itinerary, by breaking rank and going into another area, reaching out to someone. So let's watch and listen and experience those great surprises. Remember that papal audience a couple of years ago when the little boy somehow got past the Swiss guards and ran up to the Holy Father, and he just took that in his stride. In fact, a source of great joy for him. He is a man of joy, and his joy especially emerges when he's with the poor and children, those folks that the gospel tells us, unless we welcome a child, we don't welcome God. We open up our hearts, especially with the poor. All of his trips he's made a point, and in his ministry as Bishop of Rome, to be with the poor, to be with children, things where he's so full of God's gospel joy. He continues to repeat throughout his ministry that we are to go to the fringes, the outskirts, our evangelization. We go beyond our own backyard and reach those folks that don't normally are part of our church communities. And that's part of his itinerary already. His plan is to reach out to the fringes, to those folks, especially prisons, school up in Manhattan, that serves the poor. And again, he continues to radiate that joy as he reaches out to the. He continues to speak to us of dialogue and reconciliation. He will not be giving us specific answers, but instead inviting us to true, open dialogue, to truly listen to one another despite our differences, and to find reconciliation. And he witnesses that, especially in his own ministry, through interfaith dialogue and so many other instruments of consultation. And we'll see that especially unfold next month when the Synod meets for the second time on the. There are three main letters or documents that he's issued during his pontificate. Just the three main ones I wanted to point out to see what themes from these documents might emerge during the papal. The first one that he issued was the Apostolic Exhortation Evangelii Gaudium, the Joy of the Gospel, an exhortation in November of 2013. It's a document that encourages us, that inspires us to spread the gospel. He opens it by saying the joy of the gospel fills the hearts of all and lives of all who encounter Jesus. It's the theme of this entire exhortation. It's the theme of his ministry. It's who he is, a man filled with the joy of the gospel, filled with that because he's a man of prayer. Gets up around 4:30 every morning for his time with the Lord. And he invites all Christians everywhere at this very moment, every day, to renewed personal encounter with Jesus Christ. No doubt he'll be inspiring, exhorting, urging us for this prayerful daily encounter with Jesus to be the source of our joy. The Face of Mercy was issued the week after Easter, the octave of Easter, also called Divine Mercy Sunday, where he's initiated extraordinary Jubilee year of mercy that will begin on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception this year and end on the Feast of Christ the King in November in 2016. No doubt he'll be talking to us about mercy. In this document, he says mercy is the very foundation of the Church's life. It's who we are. It's how we act. It's our energy, hallmark. He says mercy is the ultimate and supreme act by which God comes to meet us. The humility of the Incarnation is at the very heart of the mercy of God. The face of mercy is the face of Jesus Christ, who shows us the face of his Father. This mercy is this fundamental law that's in our hearts of every person. And as we look into the eyes of our sisters and brothers in need, we discover in ourselves that mercy defines us, because God has reached out to us. God has connected to us and forgiven us. That very moving line is his interview that he granted a couple of years ago. Who are you? He's Jorge Bergoglio, a sinner. And he continues to repeat that he's a sinner and is forgiven early and often by God. That's the source of the joy of the gospel. That's the mercy that energizes the church. This year as well, he's issued his encyclical, his second encyclical, Laudato Si. In English, Praise Be to You, on care for our common home. No doubt he will be returning to those major themes when he addresses Congress in the United Nations. One of his great lines there, we pray that we'll hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, constantly reminding us that the problems on our planet affect mostly poor people, the defenseless, those who need us to work together on solutions. He'll probably make us a little uncomfortable when he speaks to us in this country, reminding us of how much we have. The one to whom much has been given, much is expected, the gospel tells us. And our own challenge about a throwaway culture of consuming more and more at a pace that is destroying the planet. And he'll not give us answers. Instead, his encyclical invites us into dialogue with experts, dialogue with one another, dialogue throughout the world to develop comprehensive solutions. We want to be careful if the media tells us that he's now picking on a particular group or giving us specific answers or actions. Instead, he will continue his theme in entering dialogue. Throughout his ministry, he uses four basic principles for doing things. These were operative when he was a bishop in Buenos Aires. They're clearly enunciated in the joy of the gospel. And let me just go through those four ones briefly, because I think we're going to be hearing these things during the papal visit, underlying his and his interactions. The first one, time is greater than space. E.g. means Evangelium Gaudium. Time is greater than space. He'll remind us things take time. Get involved in the process. There are no easy answers. There are no quick fixes. Money doesn't solve everything. We need to be involved in a process and slowly, slowly let the answers unfold. Things take time. Let's be patient. Second principle is unity prevails over conflict. Yes, there's plenty of difficulties, diversity, differences, but we need to remember that unity is the last word. Great example is our own families. We're all different. We have our problems. We have our our angers, but family is most important. Unity is most important. So he's going to remind us that let's work through our differences because unity is the last word. That prevails over any kind of. Third, realities are more important than ideas. We use the phrase a reality check. There's so many theories and words and ideas out there and they float around, but let's realize they take second place to the facts, to the situations, to the realities right in front of us. Let's not be caught up in just words, but in deeds and in the facts that are on the ground. And finally, the whole is greater than the part. Let's not lose sight of the big picture. Let's move out of our own backyard. Again, out to the outskirts, the fringes. Let's not get lost in our own little worlds because the whole is greater than the part. It's global. It's throughout the whole planet. Our Earth is our common home. Humanity is our one human family that God has created. So how will we experience the Pope's visit to our country? Let's see what happens in the next few days. Available here and on our website is a little checklist that highlights the points that I've tried to make very briefly. Maybe make notes, watch. Don't listen to the news all the time, but allow your own heart to be moved. Experience what happens. Listen, watch, read. And then next week, we'll gather on Monday evening, September 28th, and let's compare notes together. Let's see what touched us. Let's see if the themes that I tried to surface very briefly in this presentation, if any of them we noticed. And let's see how the Holy Father has inspired us to be women and men of mercy, women and men who care for our common home, women and men filled with the joy of the gospel. God bless.